Hi, everyone. Welcome to Drop In with Barb and Lauren. I'm Lauren Lanham.
And I'm Barb Franzino.
Today on the pod, we're sort of continuing the conversation from last week, which was about moving energy, into a discussion about intention, and we'll probably bring in boundaries also, because intention is all about directing your energy. So
yeah, and I love that because last week we talked about how energy follows awareness. And so the intention is just like the next step into that. Like as you set an intention, your energy begins to move in that direction of wherever it is, whatever it is, the intention you have set. So it really is a nice kind of segue in.
So that saying, whether you think you will or you think you won't, you're probably right.
I don't know if I know that saying.
I mean, that to me embodies intention. So, intention is, we're going to explain how we get to an intention. And in my opinion, intention is always put in the affirmative.
Absolutely. Always positive.
Yes, always positive and always in the present.
100%. And the present, positive. I guess maybe we should start and just talk about what exactly is an intention. Like if I asked you to define intention, what would you say?
I would say it's a way to direct my energy. It's a
Yeah.
way to create a pathway for my body, for my mind, for my heart, my thoughts, my feelings. And you can make it as specific as you want. And I personally think that the more specific, the better, because it informs your energy. It informs how you move forward in life on every level and gives you direction. So it's not an amorphous thing. It's not any sort of woo woo out there. It is very specific and concrete. So let's give an example, or do you want to give your definition?
Well, so I just wanted to add to that, that I agree with that definition 100%. And I also always look at it as kind of a way, when we set intentions, it can really be a way to help us to release ourselves from habits of the past, right? So I feel like, when you have in your mind an intention, if you can, it's so hard to almost explain, but what I feel like and what I know to be true for myself is when I begin to set these intentions, when something shows up in my life that's more of like sort of a limiting belief in my life, if I return myself to my intention, what it's allowing me to do is to shift that limiting belief and create like new pathways, right? So in the yoga world, we talk about samskaras, right? Which are those grooves that develop because of old patterns and habits, and they become like a default mechanism. And a lot of times they're limiting, they're called limiting beliefs because they are limiting. And it might be some thing that you say to yourself as general as a feeling that you're not worthy. So if in my mind I have an intention that I am worthy and what I have to say matters, when I'm faced with that limiting belief, if I replace it with my intention, I feel like I'm beginning to create new grooves and pathways. And I think that's one of the powers of intention is releasing you from those beliefs and creating new pathways that are more life affirming.
Yes, and our samskaras are limiting old beliefs that sometimes we've had since we were really young, tend to be very negative.
Yes,
So
100%.
we're flipping the switch and kind of changing up the program when we set a new intention to be positive, affirmation, and in the present tense.
Yes, and also the other part to that, which I couldn't think of before, is that it resonates with you, right? So when you
Yeah.
say the intention to yourself, it's like we spoke about last week about energy and how it makes you feel. When you say the intention, does it resonate in your body so that when you say it, you can actually, feel that shift to something more positive? So
Mhm.
I think that it's important to add that in when you're thinking about what intention it is you're going to set. Does it resonate with me? And is it about you? Like the intention is really all about you. And that's another piece that I always put into when I'm trying to create one.
So now I'm thinking we need to take a step back, because to know if something is resonating with you, you need
Hmm.
to be embodied. You need to be in the moment. And the best way I know of doing that is to focus on your breath. So to
Yeah.
even get to that place to know that something is resonating with you, we're going to want to breathe and check in, drop in to our core, our essence, and really ask ourselves and listen for the answer, because you're not going to necessarily know right away if something works or doesn't work until you focus and get present, drop in, and feel what's happening on an energetic level in your body. It's like all these conversations we're having connect to each other.
Hmm.
So,
So I think that's actually also a really good point. It's like, setting intentions always, it's kind of if you're in like a class, sometimes they're like, set an intention. And like that can be really hard to do that so quickly, right? Because I feel like you need some time. So what you're saying is, sit down for a moment and draw your attention to your breath and draw your attention to the sensations in your body. And
mhm,
then as you're doing that, begin to ask yourself, what is the intention? What intention would I like to set for myself? And sometimes it doesn't come up right away, or something might show up. Just go with whatever that kind of like first hit is and when you're first doing this. And it may not even necessarily make 100% sense to you, but say it again to yourself and then see where does it lie in your body. And I think
yeah.
later on as we go into this podcast we can do some, like, it's almost like exercise to see, or we'll give you some examples of intentions,
Yes,
right?
we have lots of those. And actually, what I do as a yoga teacher is I give everyone this intention, which is I take care of myself, to
Hmm.
set them on a pathway. And
Yes.
then they can create any intention beyond that, or they can stick with that. But sometimes it just helps you get into that mindset of being present and affirmative or positive.
Hmm.
Because think about intentions like, I'm not gonna eat junk food today. It's like all you're thinking about is eating junk food. Like that's
Hmm.
the reason why we don't set a negative intention that you're not
Hmm.
going to do something, because all you're going to think about is doing that thing that you don't want to do.
Yeah, so you might instead say, you know um today I'm going to focus on more healthy choices, right? Something like that feels really different than I'm not going to eat junk food,
I
right?
mean,
Like
just,
energetically, right?
yeah, yes,
Mhm.
it's so powerful. The difference
Mhm.
between I eat healthy or I'm not going to eat junk food. Like they're miles apart.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Or even stuff like, I today I'm going to nourish my body.
Yeah.
Like that's it is the power of the positive, right? It's night and day. And we spend, really honestly, too much of our time really kind of beating ourselves up. I mean, that's just almost the way we're wired in some sense for some reason. And that could be a whole nother discussion. But to really take the time to really talk with words that are more kind and compassionate to yourself,
Yeah.
always, but in particular when we're setting an intention for the day or the week,
Yeah.
however it is you'd like to do it.
I mean, to try to speak to yourself as you would to a friend who was not feeling good. How would you
Right.
speak to that person? Try to speak to yourself in that voice, because
Ex-
yes, we are our harshest critics in general.
exactly. And then, there's the whole other flip side of it is that, sometimes there's, there we have this negative energy in us about something. Like, let's say, for instance, it's resentment about something or someone.
Mhm.
And you're trying to set an intention around something that is, more negative. And you might say something like, when you're feeling resentment is something more to the tune of, I I release those who I hold responsible for
Mhm.
my happiness, right? Like, so that whole in the present, like, I'm releasing that, I think is also another side of it, because in life there's all this other, these things that come up, whether it's resentment or feeling helpless or,
Mhm.
self-doubt, and then trying to create an intention around stopping those limiting behaviors,
Yeah,
beliefs, really beliefs.
right. I let go of fill in the blank, right? Like there's so many possibilities of that. I
So
let
many possibilities I let go of.
Mhm.
And also, like, I trust, right? So I trust in, I mean, I know for me personally that I spent a lot of time using that intention during a time, when my health was not great. Just
Yeah.
saying to myself, I trust in my body, like, I trust in the healing power of my body. And
Yes.
really, that had such a profound shift in just how I approached everything during that time. So I think a lot of times intentions that start with "I trust in" are also can be very helpful.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to share like what our go-to intentions or affirmations are, just so people get a sense of how we use them.
Mhm.
Um, I sometimes use I let go of what I no longer need.
Yeah,
So,
I use that too.
I
Mhm.
mean, you're not beating yourself up for needing something that you no longer need, because you need
Mhm.
it. Some
Yeah,
there was a time when you needed it. And
and I love that too, because there is a time when you needed it and you no longer do, right? Or if something comes up that you can all you're confronted with a situation and you
Mhm.
just say, I let go of what I no longer need. That's really helpful in allowing you to shift yourself back into a more balanced place where clarity is becomes much more uh, able for you to see, I would say. you
Yeah.
know um, I like to also use that I am at peace with where I am at this moment, right? Because
Yes.
again, it's wide. It's like, it's not like you're saying, everything is roses. It's just saying I'm at peace right now. So I
Mm.
like that as an intention also.
So that all of those types of intentions that are more about acceptance of the moment are fantastic. And then there's also a category of intention that is more about fake it until you make it sort of mentality. Like,
Mm,
I'm going to just read from this book that I have. This book is called Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawain.
mm,
For example, everything I need is coming to me easily and effortlessly.
mm,
Right? So maybe things are not coming to you easily and effortlessly right now, yet by setting your intention and putting your energy on that path, energy follows attention, right? That's what we learned so strongly in our Yoga Nidra training, that, like I said, if you believe it will or won't happen, you're probably right. Like setting your pathway for yourself. And it's not blind, it's intentional. Like all of these things, these words matter so much. So whether
Yeah.
your relationships, your career, your family, whatever it is, to set your positive intention that things will be as you would like them to be, is another way of creating intention for yourself. Even if you don't have it in the moment, you think like you do, you speak like you already have it.
Yeah, and I think that that goes right back to this whole idea of changing the pathways. So
Yes.
um it's like one of my teachers would talk about it as if, the pathways are kind of like tracks, like a train going down the track. And so the train's always going to go down those same tracks if those are the only tracks that are there. And so when we begin to start to shift and bring in these intentions, we start to lay down other tracks. So as the train's going down, maybe it's not going to take that direction anymore into that more limiting belief, and instead it's going to find its way down this other really more. It's really, I always like to use the word life affirming choice, right, of way of living. But also it's really about helping you to connect really back to who you truly are, right? And
Yes.
you're not this track that only gets to go in this one direction. You literally have choices to change the track, change the direction. And that's what the power of these intentions are. Like, they're not just little words, they literally have an energetic power to them to shift the way that you react to situations in your life. And once you start to really hone into that, the power of that is really limitless. I think, you
Yeah.
know.
I think that's so true. I mean, let's create some intentions right now that people can use in their daily life. Like, I mean, even creating an intention to believe your intentions. Like, I believe in the power of words. I
Mm,
believe my words are powerful.
mm-hmm.
I trust I am on the right path. I mean, concrete things that you might not 100% believe in this moment, yet you're laying the groundwork for those things to become reality.
Yeah. And I almost feel like too, it's and I don't even, this is just coming into my head at this moment, like it's almost like beyond belief in a sense, right? So it's like, um how do I want to say this? It's like
Like a
literally shifting. It's
knowing.
like more of like, yeah, like a knowing, a shifting, a shifting, a redirecting from one belief, right? So sometimes it's easier with like, a concrete situation, right? Uh to think of like I would say if let's say you are having a relationship problem. I mean, you could fill this in anywhere. Um, and your belief system, you're letting somebody do and say things and treat you in ways that are maybe not so kind, right? And you're allowing that to continue to happen in a sense because underneath, maybe you have this belief that you're not good enough. I mean, that's like such a common limiting belief, right? Like, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not thin enough, like whatever it is, what I have
Yeah.
to say doesn't matter. And so each time you come up to a situation where you're sensing that, if instead you switch it to say um something more along the lines of I trust that what I have to say is important, right? Or um, I trust and I trust enough in myself to walk away. So, something. You see, it's not that
Yeah.
easy.
It's not. I mean, something like my voice matters. My voice is
Yes,
important.
exactly. So there's like from this other well, it's a yoga nidra book, but they talk about different like habits and intentions for them. So let's say it's like burnout or overgiving, you're an overgiver. And you recognize, and I think a lot of women could actually relate to this, right? Because we always overdo, like we're constantly taking care of
Yes.
everyone, right? Without taking care of ourselves. So an intention around that sort of overdoing is I take care of my own needs. As I take care of my own needs, I take care of others. So you
Mhm.
see, like you're putting yourself, the need of yourself first in the context of then being able to take care of others, you
Right.
know? Um,
And so what would you say though with as far as like what if the person totally doesn't believe that?
oh, if it doesn't resonate with them, yeah. So then what I say when that happens, because that does happen when you're working with people who are you're trying to help them develop an intention, and you say it to them and it doesn't resonate with them. So it's the conversation is how can we shift it, to make it resonate with you? Maybe that's um maybe that's too broad, so if it's as I take care of my own needs, maybe someone's like I can't even begin to say that, right?
Right.
That could be like um so so maybe you say something as I begin to become more aware of my own needs,
Yes. Or
you
I
know,
have needs.
or
Like
I have
literally.
needs. Yes. And then just see where that goes, right? So
Yes.
there's yeah, it's constantly a sort of a self-inquiry
Mm,
about whether this intention is working for you or not, right?
yeah.
So that's a really good point. Absolutely.
But what you just said, the self-inquiry, I mean, to me, that's the foundation of this work is understanding how you have thought, how you do think, and how you want to think, like to really know yourself. And that takes time and practice. Like that's dropping in. That's what we are inviting everybody to do, to really take the time to understand where, what are your default ideas that you just
Mm,
automatically go to without even thinking about it. Like write down where your head just goes immediately, no effort, right? And that's the automatic pilot that's unconscious. So we're asking people to consciously go through life, consciously look at your self-talk. What are the things that you just effortlessly say, oh, I always, eat too much until I'm stuffed, or, whatever it is, the negative self-talk that we all have, and trying to soften around those places. But you have to be aware first to even know you're doing it. And that's hard to do because when you admit that you speak harshly to yourself, that's a big deal.
it is a big deal. And I think what I love what you just said, because I actually think this is a really good exercise for people to try, is to sit down, with have a pen and paper and really think to yourself, what are the words that I say to myself? What are the limiting beliefs that I have about myself? You know, write them down and then um, create an intention around that shifts that to a more life affirming belief, right? Because we
Yeah.
all have them and they show up at different times. So you might think to yourself, what is it that's showing up for me now? Like what is the self-talk that I'm having now? And it could be about anything.
Hmm.
Write down that what you're saying and then try to shift it into an intention that is in the present moment, that is positive, that's concise, right? And that resonates with you, right? And
Yeah.
then there you have your intention that you can bring up um, throughout the day when you begin to start to feel yourself kind of going down that track of believing those things that are limiting for you, right? Like, I think
Right.
that's where you start.
Yeah, I love that. I think a lot of us have what we'll call a negative bias. So you could
Mm,
be going about your day and sort of doing great, and then one thing happens that doesn't go your way, and then that defines your whole day. Like you just gravitate to the one negative thing, even though it's in a sea of positives. And just
mhm,
bringing awareness to that, because we don't gravitate to the good stuff, just the bad stuff. Like that's human nature, because we're trying to protect ourselves, and you have to be aware of some, wild animal about to attack you and eat you. So we do have a negative bias, and to not beat yourself up about one negative thing that happens when the rest of the day could easily have been going great.
mhm.
I definitely know people that are like, oh, I did something so stupid, and they attach to that one moment in their day, and the rest of the day is gone,
Yeah,
meaningless.
yeah. It's
So we
that is
can
so
notice.
that is true. And then you might think to yourself, like, I always say to myself, what is it that's making me just focus on that, right? Because I mean, we do it too. It's not like you can,
Mhm.
have all your intentions in the world, but it's still, we still default back, right? These grooves are deep and
Yes.
strong, right? And so it's like, what is it? I always like to look at you, when something like that happens and I'm focusing more on, say, a negative thing that happened in the day, I think, can I step back, like take a breath and look at that and with more like sort of curiosity and not really a judgment, but like being curious and saying, okay, that's interesting. What is it about um, today or me today that's making me want to just focus on that negative thing? And like, even just in doing that, there's a shift that happens. And
Yeah.
then can I look at something? Can I choose to shift and think of something, even if something not great had happened, but maybe the sun is out today. And it's just as simple as being like, yeah, today everything seems to be going wrong, but guess what? The sun is out and it's beautiful, right?
Right. Because I don't want people to think that this negative bias is a bad thing. We all do it. It's
Yeah.
very normal and natural, but you don't have to stew in it. You can, like you were saying, Barb, shift out of it if you're aware. Like that's really
Hmm.
what we're talking about. Bringing your awareness to the moment,
Yeah.
especially when you're like, oh, I'm such an idiot. How could I have done that? Oh my God, well, I totally screwed up.
And
Okay, say
it's
that
so,
to yourself and then shift out.
yeah. And I mean, it's so funny because it's like ultimately in doing that, you're just, you're going to feel better to shift out. So it's also like, even just saying to yourself, if I can just shift from this, as I shift from
Mm.
this, I know I'm going to feel better, right? Just a
Yes.
slight shift.
Yes.
And sometimes you can't because, you're going to recognize that as well, right? It's just, you got to stay in the mud for a little while, and
Well,
that's okay. Yeah.
that's a great point. It's like I
Hmm.
know things suck right now, but
Yeah.
I trust in my ability to
Move
stay
through it.
positive or move
Yeah.
through it. That's
Yeah.
right. I mean,
Hmm.
getting creative around intention setting is so fun. I was going to show this book one more time because it's so, so, so awesome. Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawain. There's got, there's hundreds of, um, oh my gosh, our 30-minute mark. There's hundreds of suggestions of affirmations and positive intention setting. And, the more you use hers, the better you'll get at creating your own.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's 100% true. You don't have to like be trying to make them all up on your own. Get a book like that book and read through it and jot down some of the intentions that resonate with you from that book, and then, move them into your life. So I think that's actually a really good suggestion. Um, and probably a good place to wrap it up.
Good place to start, good place to stop.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what we were talking about moving into the next podcast around boundaries, right? I think that this kind of melds into that. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, stay tuned, everybody. Swallow some dust, but we
You have
do
a
have so
frog
much
in your
to
throat.
say around boundaries, so it's good that it's going to be a separate podcast.
Yes. Very good.
All right, awesome. Have an awesome day, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
All right, take care.
Take care.
We'd love to hear from you. You can connect with us at dropin2023@gmail.com. That's DROPIN2023@gmail.com.